Hi and welcome to Shakey's Sports Journeys. Belter of an episode ahead for you today. I'll start by just mentioning that you can subscribe to Shakey Sports Journeys on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, and Apple. We have got loads of different sporting journeys for you. We've also launched football shows, rugby shows, and cricket shows, as well as many stories from people from all different sports. I also want to give a shout out to old teammate of mine, Rennie Keith of PSL Sports, who kindly gave me this lovely new hoodie that I'll be rocking on all future podcasts. But I'm now going to pass over to my good man and co-host, Mr. Flanners.
Shaky, thanks very much. I have to admit, I'm really excited about this one. I think, growing up, I think it was between maybe 19 and 25. This man was a part of my life, mostly as we sat at the sidelines talking rubbish as I was 12th man. And to be honest, Juddy, I think, spent more time with me trying to improve my fielding than he did with anyone else. And unfortunately, he's probably the only person he's ever failed to improve his fielding. So, listen, a big warm welcome. Tony, how are you doing, mate?
How you going, Flanners? How Chasm? How are you?
Very well, Juddy. Good to have you with us all the way from Darwin.
Good to have you with us.
Darwin.
Are you keeping well?
Yeah, look, it's God's country, and before we probably go on, I must say I feel terribly for what's been going on in the UK. It's had some moments here in Australia, but here in the Northern Territory, we've been pretty much COVID-free for 12 months. So I ring a lot of friends back home in Scotland, and God knows what it's like to go through the lockdowns you have. And I just hope anyone that's had any issues with this, everything's going all right for you, and hope you all stay safe.
I appreciate it. It's difficult for people with kids, and I think it's been some dark times, to be fair. But listen, you sunning yourself up there, telling us you were fishing today. You look like you've caught a bit of sun, mate. So you had a good day.
Yeah, I caught a lot of sun today, and caught a few fish as well. It's pretty much every day of the year here, anywhere between 30 and 34 degrees. So
beautiful.
It's a different. I never came to Darwin until I left Scotland. I'd never been here when I was living in Australia.
Yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately, I put sunscreen on my lips, but forgot about the rest of my face. So I've caught a bit. Yeah.
You just mentioned, Juddy, you mentioned obviously your time in Scotland, mate. I want to take us back, if possible. Me and Shake are going to look at where it all started for you in Scotland. You came across as, well, obviously to Greenock. Was it a coaching gig first up, mate, or player coach gig, was it?
It's an amazing story because I'd come over the year before I finally came to Scotland to a World Cricket Coaches Conference representing Tasmanian cricket. And the only way I got that gig was to prove that I would then go and visit our Sheffield Shield players who were playing for counties at that time. There was about 3 of them, and there was one other Tasmanian player who was playing for Greenock, which was Dean Hills. Yeah. So part of my remit for having the junket to go all the way to the UK for a coaches conference was to check on Damien Wright, Jamie Cox, David Boone, and Dean Hills. Mm-hmm. I think Boone was at Durham, Jamie was at Somerset, and Damien Wright was at Northants, and then Dean was up in Greenock. All 4 of those visits to those players were nothing short of a bevy fest, and they were fantastic. But I got to Greenock, and I got down the tail end of the Greenock Marquee weekend, and Dean Hills said to me, "Will you please stay another night here in Greenock and take these blokes for training? They're awful. It's terrible, and I hate it." And I said, no, I'm going up north for a bit of a holiday now before I go back to Australia. Please stay one more night. So I tell you what, if you come up north with me, I'll come back and we'll have a training session. At that stage, I was assistant coach with Tasmania, the southern-based Tasmanian Tigers. In those days, we had north, south, and assistant coaches didn't travel with the Shield teams back then. But I took a training session for Greenock, and my great friend, who everyone will know on this podcast, Kenny Godsman, saw it and rang one of my other great friends who became my employer, Jimmy Lepick, who was based in London at the time, and said, "We need to have more of this. We need to get this bloke back. So they flew me back for 6 weeks. And at the end of the 6 weeks, they said, do you know what? We'd like to have you come back full time.
Yep.
To me, Aussie with no visa rights, whatever else. At the time, my first wife actually had a British passport.
Right.
So I was able to get back into the country on a British passport, and I got a 12-month visa. And the rest is history, really. It all worked out. Even though we'd separated, I managed to get an indefinite stay visa. So I could have lived in the UK for the rest of my life. And Greenock was the reason for that, not Scotland. I had no idea about Scotland. But the reason I gave up my job in Tassie was I knew that as far as I'd got with coaching and whatever else there, I was never going to get a gig at first class level in Tasmania. Mm-hmm. There's a thing here in Australia where pretty much if you haven't played at that level or you haven't played at test level, you're highly unlikely to get a coaching gig. So I took a punt. Yes, I'll go and coach Greenock. But I had hoped in the background that maybe something good would come of it, which was Scotland. And at that time, Jim Love had taken Scotland to a World Cup qualifier and failed. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, Greenock was winning everything. And I'd introduced a number of things, I think, to Scottish cricket where people were saying, what the hell's going on here? This is different to what we're doing. We need to see more of this as well. And then all of a sudden, I was appointed interim coach of Scotland. And I'm not even sure I was ever appointed officially head coach, but I kept that job for the best part of 3 years. That's how it happened.
Jimmy Lepic, money man, is that right? Jimmy
Lepic paid for me lock, stock and barrel. And, I can't thank him enough. Greenock, much maligned, but they had foresight. They had the desire to become the best cricket team in the land, and they did for a best part of about nearly 10 years. And, 5 Scottish Cups. They'd never won one since they joined the competition in 1864. They won league titles. They won Western Unions, you name it. And you be very careful when you say that because they won them. You have a coach, that's fine. But at the end of the day, we had good players. We had money backing us. We were lucky to get guys like Shannon Bakes, who fell in love with a girl over there. We had Chris Swan, who finished up playing for Queensland when they were amateurs over there. We were very lucky. And
great
Jimmy
player,
Lepic.
Great player as well. That you had the likes of Dighton that came in as well. He was class.
Dighton, Jason Frazier, Corey Richards was a superstar in New South Wales. Money helps, but at the end of the day, you came to Greenock. I still say to this day, we didn't get that lucky because I think we were training a certain way. We were training like as you'd expect to go to a Shield training squad here in Tasmania. Mm-hmm. But it was so many games we won where our local players got us over the line when our big players failed. There was an atmosphere around the club that was electric. You can love Jimmy, you can hate Jimmy, but by God, that man had some foresight. And the real key to it all was Kenny Gosman as well.
Great story. Great story the way it came about.
Kenny Gosman, don't forget, then became very much a part of a lot of people's life with Scotland cricket as well. Yeah. He wasn't zeroed in just on, and Jimmy was on the board at Cricket Scotland for a while as well. It was sensational times. It was fun. Mm-hmm. We partied hard, we played hard, but most importantly, we really trained hard. And I can still think of the David Thompsons of the world from Greenock. I think of the Stuart McDonalds and people like that. Their seasons during that time were probably the best they ever had as well. And
when did your love child come into the fray? When did Richie Brown come around?
It's funny. I think I met him when he was about 10, I think. And, don't forget he'd been born in South Africa, but he'd come to Scotland, I think, about 2 or 3, 4 years of age. But clearly his parents and everyone else were cricket people. And, it's like in Scotland. I mean, Edinburgh gets a lot of English people up there that love cricket, and Greenock doesn't get that. Well, Richie was a gift in a sense, a little South African kid that wanted to be the best he could be. And you notice very quickly with him, he had some ability. I think relatively brain dead, and certainly can't travel on a plane. But apart from that, you could see this kid was a cricketer. The same way I could see Kaz or you or whatever else to say these kids are cricketers. And
I wanted to ask you about the first time I ever met you, Juddy.
when was that?
The great Mike Stanger had obviously you'd made a lot of kind of noise over at Greenock. Things were going really well. You mentioned the likes of Shannon Bates. I remember playing a game when I was about 15 at Clydesdale, and it was Dean Hills at first slip, Tom Black at second slip, Shannon Bates steaming in, and it was like I was playing in a proper like a county standard. That's how good Stroppy had made the move to Greenock as well. You had a proper team. But I was introduced to you at Hutchison Grammar. Mike Stanger had brought you in, and you loved the bowling machine. I mean, you were way too lazy to be doing throwdowns. It was my first introduction to a bowling machine, and I remember you tossed it up to like late 70s. I'd never seen anything like that in my life. And I don't know if you were just trying to fill me with confidence. I think you were. I think you were talking nonsense, but you said you were about the same. You're about the same level of talent as Ricky Ponting at his age, and I remember thinking, I'm going to take on the world. Didn't quite work out like that, Juddy.
Well, it didn't go far away, mate. You got to play for your country. So not many people can say that, no matter where you live, no matter what you do. I still really, I've come back here and people have said to me, oh, well, who are you? And, well, you only coached Scotland. Yeah, well, yeah, I did. But I got to go to World Cups. I got to go to tournaments all over the world. I got to take players like yourselves and get them to compete at English county games and things like that. And never once did we ever treat ourselves as we can't do this or we're not good enough. There's a lot of Shield cricketers that will play Shield cricket in Australia for 10 or 15 years. They get no World Cups, no tournaments, no international thing. Don't get to play against Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, India, Pakistan. We all did that. And it's amazing to think that. Now, sure, we're not likely to beat the big boys. Although recently, unbelievable. Scotland have beaten Sri Lanka, they've beaten England, as Ireland have done, and things like that. But most people look at it and go, oh, Scotland even have a cricket team or whatever else.
Yeah.
We had some terrific talent all through those years. Richie won and whatever else. And, you talk about your Tom Blacks going back. That guy was a sublime batsman. Beautiful, beautiful cricketer to watch. I remember Dean Hills saying, Dean Hills used to say to me, man, this guy can play. All right. So it's always a case. And I grew up when I went to Tasmania. Tasmania were the whipping boys of everyone in Australia. And all of a sudden, Greg Shippard, their head coach, produces guys like Ponting. And, these guys are born too. Don't get me wrong. They're born. But Ponting, Divinudo, Sean Youngs, people like that, they're incredible cricketers coming from a tiny, tiny state. Yeah. And the short answer to it all is that never say never. When I took over Scotland, we entered the English one-day county championship for the first time ever.
Yeah.
For the first time ever. And Mike Hendricks, the ex-England fast bowler, was my assistant coach. What a great man he was too, by the way. I loved him. And, he said to me the day I got the job, he said, you realise you'll only win 1 out of 250 games that you play. And I went, Mike, Jesus, well, what's the point? I just couldn't accept it and I wouldn't accept it. I think Scotland won 3 of their first 4 in their entry into the English one-day league. We beat Somerset, Durham and Lancashire.
Who was your players? Who was your good players, Juddy?
Well, the 3 wins that we had then, Ryan, were all amateurs. We were all amateurs apart from John Kent, who I think maybe had played 1 or 2 one-day internationals for South Africa. When we beat Lancashire, I think 9 of their guys had played Test cricket. Their overseas players were Stuart Law and Carl Hooper, for God's sake. You had Saj Mahmood, you had Chappells, you had all sorts of guys that had played for England, Malloys and all this sort of thing. We won those games without anything, but 6 weeks into the season, we picked up Rail Dravid.
I remember, yeah.
So we won 3 of the first 4 games, and Rail came in as our overseas professional, who was magnificent, by the way. 600 runs, 10 innings, 300s. Never forget watching him bat. What a joy. But we only won 1 game with Rail Dravid in our side for the rest of the year. The Scottish boys played with heart, adrenaline. I can still remember standing on the balcony at Old Trafford with about 3,000 Scots, bagpipes, cheering us at the end of the day. It was amazing scenes, amazing scenes.
Raul Dravid, that was my sort of first early memories as a young cricketer. I think, looking at the Scottish team, I'd be young then. I'd be, I don't know, maybe 15, maybe 16, I think, maybe. And I remember thinking, wow, like he was someone I looked up to and thought, what a player, mate. What was he like? What made him so class? Was his temperament or technique? He was just unreal, wasn't he?
So one, first and foremost, humble, a gentleman, and an absolute genius with a bat in his hand. But there's very few cricketers, I think, that get to his level, and you really got to put him in the Tendulkar, the Lara, the Ponting level. Maybe even a Darren Lehman, who I thought was really gifted, didn't play as much as he should have, but these guys were magicians. At Damien Martin with a bat in their hand. Raul was always considered to be, defensive. When he played for us in the one-day games, by the time he got to about 80 or 90, when he started to hit, he hit big, and he never failed to hit anything, I reckon, that didn't go into a gap. I never saw him get caught in the deep ever. He was just fantastic. And all of us, players and coaches and whatever else, you don't coach guys like that, you work with them. And they teach you so much. And such a beautiful human being. And look, one of the great thrills of my life to have spent some time with him like we did.
Juddy, I want to fast forward a little bit now. I remember the county stuff very well, and you've been very humble there, and talking about that and talking about the boys. But you've got to take credit because we'd never competed at that level before. Maybe a couple of Benson Hedges Cup games and stuff in the years previous, and we'd never really competed properly. You worked very closely with Righty as captain, and both of you formed a very good partnership. And you did. You punched well above your weight, and you, like, for the youngsters like myself, Hussein, would have been the same for Flanners, Richie Berrington's. You kind of gave us there's something to push for. We want to play against the counties. We want to get in there and be part of this team. And I think it's kind of been missed a little bit. I think it's a bit missed. I know we've got this regional competition now, and great work Cricket Scotland are doing to try and push that forward. But playing against 11 professionals two times a week with a couple of hired gun pros, you've got to raise the bar. And I think it's a little bit missed. I want to fast forward and talk about some tours. One tour in particular, one of probably the best time of my life. We went over to play in Bermuda, and we went over to play in Canada. You were assistant coach at that time to Pete Steindl. Yeah, I know we called you the analyst at the time more than the assistant coach. You spent a lot of time on the old laptop. But let's talk about Bermuda first. So we arrived in Bermuda. What was that like, Juddy, first night? Bloody hell.
Yeah, I can't remember everything, but I can remember what I do remember about that tour in particular. I'd just come back from Australia. I tried to get back out here in 2008, and I got back, and Peter Steindl basically offered me a £1,500 gig with Scotland, which included being assistant at the time. And I'm very indebted to Peter Steindl. He saved my life not saved my life, but we had a stepson, obviously. Getting him to Australia was hard work, and Peter approached me. I'd only ever coached Peter twice in my lifetime, and then he retired. And he approached me and said, "Would you like to be my assistant coach? But I've only got £1,500. So that's that tour. But I don't remember any specific tours so well now, Kaz, other than everywhere.
I'll refresh your memory.
Good,
so
go for it.
We arrived on the first night, and it was like the Bermudan local. It was like the mayor of the mayor or something like that hosted us on this beautiful.
That's right. Now you're talking.
Amazing
Yeah.
spot, fish galore, and we were just like treated like royalty.
Yeah. Like we had some amazing tours, but that particular tour, if you remember at the end, we also had a tropical cyclone.
I remember it very well. I remember it very well.
I remember arriving in Canada to answer my phone, and my wife said, "Don't get angry, I'm pregnant."
I remember.
So I
never seen you so emotional.
Yeah, I immediately said, "Geez, is that Jesus from Scotland, from Greenland, or whatever else?" But so it was memorable for a number of reasons. But what's memorable about touring, Kasim, thanks to you, is that somehow or another you managed to convince every hotel in the world that your name was Tony Judd, got my room key, and trashed my room. You wee bastard, you.
Juddy, honestly, that night, I've never forgot about it. You know, we beat Canada, so we beat Bermuda. I got you with the $90 phone call where I told you had to pay $90. I'll never forget it. You were on the phone just going, no. Can't get out with the Bermudan cricket board. We won in Bermuda. We enjoyed it. Went to Canada. Tough, played in hot conditions. Beat Canada. And then it was the last night. We'd had a good time. We'd come back to the hotel. I'd went to the reception and said, "Hi, my name's Tony Judd. I've lost my key."
You look like a Tony Judd, but enough.
Yeah, there you go. There's Tony Judd right there. Pakistan, Scottish Asian with a beard. I'm Tony Judd. I managed to get your key. My acquaintance was Richie Berrington.
Of course it was.
And I went up to your room. Now, you'd actually been out with us that night, but you'd gone home maybe about midnight or so. So you were in, I've come into the room and you were snoring, like deep snoring. And I never just had people always say it was a jug. It was a bin this big, filled to the brim with water and ice. And I remember I peered round the corner. You were lying in your boxers, Juddy. And I launched the bucket. And oh my God, I'm sorry, Juddy. To this day, I'm surprised you didn't have a bloody heart attack or something. Because when I hit you obviously had this shock. And when I went to run out, Berrington locked me in the room, and I was like, pulling the door. I could hear you going. Argh! I managed to get out, and the next morning you came down to breakfast. Fair play to you, Juddy. I thought you were going to kill me, but you came down. You just gave me a smirk. And said, all right. And we were having a training session the next day or something. And you'd basically sent out my water bottle and you filled it with wasabi. And I remember I was guzzling this wasabi and I hit the floor. Juddy, great times, man. Great times.
They were great times, and it happened all over the world. You realise that I had about 97 birthdays while I toured, because every time I got on a plane or a restaurant, everyone come up and sang happy birthday to me because of you bastards.
Richie was the best. Everywhere we went, he just tapped with the waiter's arm. By the way,
the one in Namibia, the one in Spurs at Namibia was the best one, where I had about 15 Namibians coming up and doing happy birthday in some sort of African chant. And that was, and I got to the stage either on a plane or in a restaurant going, thank you, everyone, thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks very much. Thanks very much for a great night.
Every time the happy birthday started, I think you knew this is coming in my direction.
But I used to go home sometimes off the planes with about 15 little miniature bottles of whiskey and things like that, because the hosties would give me presents, and the pilot would say congratulations and happy birthday, and those were the days, weren't they? Those were the days. I think there's a really important point. Most of those things happen at the end of a tour, as you remember. And my motto in life was, Australia travels and they get 5-day breaks between games and they go and play golf. And when we travelled, we were lucky to get an hour's break, if you remember, because of budget. And so when you got to your last night or a rest night, you made the most of it.
Yeah.
And I also think in sporting terms, if you can't treat this as a game, and a game means fun, if you can't find a way to enjoy it whilst you're in it, give it away, because each are live. And I was really I remember when Peter Steindl appointed me as his assistant coach, I said, all right, Pete, happy to do this, but remember one thing, when it's the last night or a rest night, I'm me, not what you want me to be. And I've been that way. I've been that way all through my cricket career.
Mr. Judd, you've just walked right into this one, right? So there's been some memorable victories as your assistant coach. There's been some great performances. You know, you alluded to you're the first coach to take, win an I Cup with Scotland, which is an unbelievable achievement. And I'll probably get you to talk about that a little bit. But there was a T20 international in Holland. And
yeah, I know that.
Your love child, Richard Berrington, I think he scored 105
he did.
55 balls. What an incredible game. I remember it well because I think I was supposed to bat 3. I got knocked down to 4. I came in the last ball of the game, hit it straight up and then got caught. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Anyway, we proceeded to beat Bangladesh. What a performance. Yeah. And that obviously we were going home the next day. Would you like to tell me what proceeded after that evening into the next morning?
Yeah, I think I know. I can't remember it all, but I know that by the time I got on the bus, Steindl had banned me from something. I can't remember what I was banned from. What a miserable bastard. We just won our first ever T20 international. Barrington scored 100 in like record time, whatever else, and Steindl said you're late for the bus, so you're getting it.
Juddy, you're the assistant coach, right? And I have to admit, the bus was leaving at a certain time, and even all the players were on the bus, maybe a little bit bleary-eyed after being in. It was either Amsterdam or Rotterdam the night before, one of the two. And I remember it well. I remember Pete going bloody mental, going back to the room, knocking the room. No one could get you up, mate. It was some achievement that day.
Oh, well, I was genuinely tired. It was emotional. It had nothing to do with having a couple of quiet ones to celebrate the greatest win we'd had in years.
A couple of frothies. No, it was that for me was a cracker. Yeah. And talking about planes, Shaky. Talking about planes. Was there not a story Kenny Gosman?
Yeah, what's this about a plane journey? You practically
road rage.
Yeah,
road rage or air rage.
Road rage or air rage.
There's not much to it. Other than I said to Gosman, why the hell are you pointing in Stanger or captain of the club when you've got me? Greenock, that is. I couldn't wait. Stroppy was fantastic. He was a great man, but a little bit too process-driven for my liking. I'm more impulse. But Gosman said I was, but you've got to remember that Greenock emptied the plane of everything it had. It was Jimmy Leppich's Stag we were on.
Right.
And there were things that we were drinking on that flight because I never normally drink that I can't even remember. But this was a holiday, don't forget. It wasn't a serious tour. I wasn't working at the time. Yeah. So, Gosman's got no right to speak. I mean, let's face it, the man drove around Barbados in a mini moke with no roof on, decided that his head was sunburnt, went into the petrol station, tried to buy the cap off the girl that was working in the petrol station. She refused because it was her only cap. So then he proceeded to drive around with a poly bag taped to his head. And by the time he took it off, his brains were on the outside of his head. It looked like he'd melted. He's no right to talk at all. I'm not putting up with him and just saying, well, there was that one incident. That man is an incident full stop. But no greater supporter, no greater human being I've ever met in my life. Champion.
Anyone drink double vodka Red Bull like the man. But what a man.
Quadruple vodka Red Bulls, Ryan. Quadruple vodka Red Bulls. And no one ever made you feel more alive or happy than when Kenny was in a room. And his support and love for Scottish cricket, you never can fault that, ever. Anyone said anything bad against him, I'd be extremely upset. Jimmy Lepich as well. Jimmy had his moments, but Jesus Christ, he always put his money where his mouth was too. Yeah, not just for me, Scotland as well. Yeah.
Then he came and did assistant coach stuff, didn't he? Sorry, he was the team manager, wasn't he? When you were assistant in Dubai, the T20s and stuff like that. He was brilliant.
Who, Kenny?
Yeah, he was brilliant.
Yeah, no, he's and would have looked after each and every one of you to the best of his ability. Yeah. I know he had issues. Well, he was involved with the Majid Hack demise, which I wasn't, obviously. But I even think Kenny felt pain about that. I mean, he didn't want to lose him either. But, you know, you have choices or you don't have choices, or there's rules and there's not rules. Interesting times, I suppose. But, you know, Scotland has done significantly fantastic things way after my time. And, you know, Peter Steindl had a lot to do with a lot of people as well. We're all different how we approach things. We're all different coaches. But I personally feel, for me, I was as proud to represent Scotland as I've ever been proud to do anything in my life. Anything. You know, it's like if you got a chance to compete on the world stage, well, what are you going to do about it? Just expect to get beaten, or you want to go and try and win? And I think, you know, Greg Williamson, I can remember I took the captaincy off him as soon as I took the job and gave it to Righty. But I asked Greg, would he perform certain roles within the batting order, opening the batting and going, and he never once flinched either. He was terrific as well. There were some players that found it really hard to adjust to the approach. In fact, when I took over Scotland, you were still playing for draws in one-day cricket, and I got rid of that and said it's winner take all, because that's what we do when we play counties or when we're playing ODIs. But guys like Greg Williamson, and then, you know, I made mistakes too. I never picked Neil McCallum for a number of years. Mm-hmm. And it was a really horrid mistake, because you walk away from that and realise what I missed with him wasn't so much about technical ability to cope. It was about the heart to cope. And you know, I've apologised to Neil about that profusely. It's one of my sad things. I've had run-ins with players. I've had arguments with players. I've dropped players. I've ended players' careers. That's sport. It happens. And you got to all reflect on that. And whether I was right or wrong, I'm happy to reflect on that. And whatever a player now thinks of me or doesn't think of me, well, that's okay too. But I don't think I had any other interest in my heart other than what I thought would win us games. I never played to draw, and I never played to lose. I can remember after my time, Scottish sides settling for being 5 for 180 off 50 overs and thinking they're doing a great job. Waste of time.
Yeah.
I remember you winning us a game at the Dubai World Stadium, Ryan, on the last ball of the day. Well, I always played to win. Ryan Watson was enormous. I used to open the batting with him. When I left, they put him down to 4 or 5. Ryan Watson won us more games than most blokes because he could. But when he hit, I think, in my opinion, when he hit down at 4 or 5, it cost us games. Things like that. Now, this is all hindsight, and it's wonderful. Mm-hmm. And I've never said there's no such thing as bad coaches. We're different coaches. But I never had any other attitude after what Mike Hendricks said to me. Well, I'm not doing this unless I think I can win. And that was my motto. And I needed to find cricketers like yourselves and people like that who were prepared, Kazim, talented, prepared to try and win games. And I saw photos of you recently, Shaky, standing next to Shoaib Akhtar and people like that, because you got to play against Pakistan. Well, I got to coach against my own country. I got to coach against England. I got to coach at Lord's, at Headingley, at the Oval, Trent Bridge, all over the world. I mean, Jesus, we were lucky. Mm-hmm. But you shouldn't be there as you're part of it. You're there to try and win it.
Yeah,
I just don't see any other way.
No, I like your attitude, and I do think we had I don't know if you've caught it. We had a World Cup podcast where we had all the previous World Cup captains, and it was George Salmond actually that talked about it, and he said, 99 World Cup, we made the World Cup, but we didn't really compete compared to what years down the line the game evolved, and he gave you a lot of credit in your partnership with Righty that you kind of changed the mindset of Scottish cricket, and listening to you today, you clearly went out there to win this whole let's take part nonsense. It's no good, and I think you've highlighted as well. Scottish cricket then went on from there, and I think Pete done a good job. I think it was time as well for the likes of a Grant Bradburn to come in and he took the game forward as well, to the point where we're beating England at the Grange. I mean, that would never have happened 10 years previous.
No. And, you're right, Kazim. And Andy Moles, to me, was a good fella as well, and it's no point saying, you like this or you like that, but there's no way an Ireland or an Afghanistan or a Scotland, Netherlands can compete on the world stage unless, if you're frightened of losing, give up. Just give it away. You've got to try and win. And the only way you'll learn to become to the level that the players above us are at is to go at them the same way they'll go at you. Mm-hmm. And I had no doubt about that in all my life. That was the key. So if you played, you had to be playing for a reason. You were there for a reason, not just to, well, let's hope we win today. That's garbage. Craig Wright was a very, very intense man and a very driven cricketer. And for a bloke, and I hope he doesn't mind me saying this, that what skill set he had, do you know what the skill set he had? Whatever it was, he was just good at it. Mm-hmm. And I've seen him nick off some of the best players in the world. Right? No pace, no nothing. I've seen McCallum's make 50s and 100s. I've seen Ryan and Kazim Sheikhs do well at this level, right? And it's harder to do it consistently because you don't have the consistent competition. Yeah. But why be there unless you want to be like that? I don't get that. And, I work with, my job now is to work with coaches of all sports here in the Northern Territory. I have a bit to do with cricket again these days over here. I'm getting to the stage where I could do with some refreshers. I need to learn more too, because nothing stands still. You don't own anything, and nor as a coach are you responsible for anyone or everything. Players have got to realise they're pretty much responsible for their own careers. Coaches are there to help them get there. Mm-hmm. And you might have hiccups, but that's fine. That's life. But at the end of the day, everyone has got to sit back and go, what could I have done more that I didn't do? And I'll live with. I toy with that and I think about it. There was more things I could do. I heard a really good podcast recently. Another colleague of mine here in Australia, who's a coach developer, mm-hmm. and when someone asked him, "What do you do for a living?" He said, "I coach cricketers." And the guy kept asking him, "So what's that mean?" "Well, I do this and I do that." He said, "You're not in the coaching business." He said, "You're in the people business." Mm-hmm. And that resonates really well with me. You really are dealing with a whole lot of personalities at a given time. Yeah. For all the will in the world, you hope it all clicks, but sometimes it doesn't. And you don't meet eye to eye, or you can't form that relationship with that particular person. So, but even then, both parties have to look inwards rather than outwards. Is it my fault or their fault?
Juddy,
That's what I think.
Juddy, I think one thing, looking back with yourself, was you always sort of, you gave everyone, a lot of time. You gave everyone a lot of attention. You were there for people, and you're right. You did motivate people. I remember you saying to me when I was walking out to the Oval, just go and take it to them, and go after them. And I got hit second ball in the flipping face by Jade Dernbach, and I was still thinking, Jesus Christ. And then I might have just took that that advice a little bit too far, because I was trying to hit Yasser Arafat out the ground second ball and nicked off. But at least you're having a go. Do you know what I mean? And that's what you sort of installed that, I think, with the lads.
Well, the other thing too, Ryan, with that is practice how you want to play. Yeah, that was the other thing I think I did all along. Was all I did was bring Greg Shippards, who's a fantastic coach. He was my mentor in Tasmania. He's just recently won the Big Bash League again with the Sixers. Yeah. He's been coaching for 30-odd years. He's the longest-serving cricket coach and very highly rated. But he always said, practice how you want to play. It's no good going to the nets and just doing what you want to do. I mean, you've got to have a reason. So if I want you to open the batting and I want you to go after him, then that's how I want you to train. Yeah. Which I go back to Ryan Watson's of the world. I mean, you have no idea when we first started with all the amateurs. I mean, Colin Smith was finishing a game at 9 o'clock in Aberdeen and turning up at Lancashire at 5 in the morning and playing at 11. I mean, Christ. When I started, there was no centralised Cricket Scotland. So I used to have to travel to Aberdeen, to Edinburgh, to Ayr to train with boys, to try and get them to play the way we wanted to play. You Drew Parsons, I remember people. Some of these guys all fall by the way, so they couldn't commit to what was needed to be committed to. It just wasn't. It wasn't a cakewalk. It was, but by God, it was fun. I can tell you that. And
Judd, what was your favourite? So taken back, because you've mentioned a lot of decent memories there. What would you say? Maybe so if you could pick one memory as the full team coach, Scotland coach, and one as your assistant coach, what was your two memories that you could sort of live with you for the rest of your life?
Without doubt, those first 4 games of we lost one of them, but the first 4 games in the English County League was immense. I mean, we beat Durham, our first ever game in this thing. They had Javagal Srinath, Steve Harmison, Paul Collingwood. There were blokes everywhere. Then Somerset had Coxes, Nixon McLean's, Andrew Caddicks. All these guys are superstars. Lancashire had your Hoopers and your Stuart Laws and all this. I think we were just high on what a great opportunity this is for Scotland. And, to the administrators in Scotland and to the ICC, they've taken you so much further forward. That was awesome. As an assistant coach, I guess I'm very honoured to serve under Peter. I think I was a really good foil for him. Peter was a very, very driven man and very process, whereas I was the opposite. I was more gut instinct, more, and we bounced off each other magnificently well. I was so grateful to him for getting me back into the fold, if you like. But our tour to Namibia and my mate Laurie Peters and people like that, that was awesome. That was a great tour. We won everything, I think, pretty much out there. And Namibia was a pretty decent team. But also, I couldn't get access to Dougie Brown and Gavin Hamilton very often when I started because they played for England. But to have Gav Hamilton be a part of my team for a number of years, but also to win that Intercontinental Cup, it's the only time Scotland's won it. So it's the minor test championship, if you like. Fraser Watts burst onto the scene. Kyle Kurtzer burst onto the scene. They were 17 and whatever. I found Fraser Watts down at Leicester and went and had a net with him at Leicestershire and, you're going to be part of this journey for such a long time. I could mention so many people.
Somebody I wanted to bring to your attention who I think you had a massive influence on. When I remember playing against him first time was D. Walt Nell. He used to run in off about 5 steps. You can see he had an action, little bit overweight, but playing under your coaching, he transformed into one of the best opening bowlers Scotland's ever had.
He's such a lovely boy. I'm not sure I did have that much to do with him in that sense, Kaz, but he had what I always used to look for, outswing. So as soon as I could see someone bowl outswing, I mean, I used to get really interested because that's wicket taking. So again, you're trying to win games, And D-Watt had that, and as he grew and got fitter and stronger, poor bastard though, we're playing at the Oval against South Africa. It's the beginning of our World Cup T20 campaign, and I hit a ball that broke his finger in the warm-up, and he was out of the tournament. He was out of the tournament. And one of my great sadnesses was the blow-up with John Blaine, Peter Steindl, Gav Hamilton in that World Cup campaign. I know John's back in the fold, I think, and, life moves on. But
what happened there, Juddy? What happened in the blow-up? What happened?
John was upset with the way things were heading and what was being done or how he was being used. And I think he'd been criticised for being too expensive after a particular game. And he just blew his top. And, I wonder whether he regrets that. I don't know. a good mate of John's. You know, I got on really well. And I sat in the room with them and I said, "Don't go," and there's a way through this and whatever else. But he chose to do what he chose to do.
A few players, I don't think there's a few players that won't forgive him for that.
Well, this is like anything to me, is that none of us own this damn thing. None of us do. And we never will. So if I coached you for a wee bit and I coached you for a wee bit, Kaz, and well, I'm part of your journey. I'm not the end and I'm not the beginning and I'm not the story. It's just not. You know, when you get to the highest level, you really manage players. You don't necessarily coach them. You just set environments where they get better.
Yeah.
So you don't change their techniques. You don't do whatever else. You just help them do what they're seeking to do.
Who's the best player you've coached, Juddy? Who's the best player you've coached?
In Scotland or anywhere?
Scotland.
I'd probably say, because I spent so much more time with him than anyone else, was Richie.
Yeah.
I've sort of always been disappointed that his all-round capabilities weren't as good as they could be, but see when that little bugger gets going with a bat, it's kind of special. I remember him driving Brett Leafer and you know, he's only like a 17-year-old kid and shit like that. And I remember those things, and because he'd grown up in Greenock, he owes me bugger all as well. That's what I'm saying. I was just snippets and parts of the journey. I spent more time with Richie trying to get him okay to travel, trying to get him to, yeah, he had real issues. I mean, he used to hold.
He didn't like being up. I'd imagine he probably.
I remember getting on a plane. I think it was back from Namibia, and he's holding my hand and saying, "Why won't the hostess sit down? Because the seatbelt sign's on." He's shitting himself.
I remember.
And, I'm sure he'd admit that. I'm sure he'd admit that. But you know, some people can travel, some people can't. And I know he's a dad now. And you know, look, hats off to him. What a long career, and he survived all this and managed to travel the world.
Should he have played county cricket? Should he have played county cricket?
Well, I know that story very well because I drove him down and had a meeting with Matthew Hoggard. And it was all signed, sealed and delivered. And as we travelled back up the road to Greenock the next night, Richie, I think you should do this. And his real problem was he didn't want to leave home. And he knocked it back. Matthew Hoggard had him signed, sealed, delivered.
I remember talking to him as well and just saying, Richie, man, you don't want to pass this by. But I was out in Brisbane with him for 6 months as well, and he doesn't like to be away from home. He's obviously the oldest siblings of a big family, loads of younger sisters, close with his parents as well.
But Richie was the 2 weeks before he went away and the 2 weeks prior to travelling home, he'd be sick. He'd worry himself to death, shit himself to death. And, you know, we know now that's a condition. It's not that he was weak or something wrong. He generally got himself so low. And so I can always remember on a longer tours, he'd come good about week 3 and 4 and then taper at the end. He was useless at the start, good week 3 and 4, and then taper off at the end, knowing that he had to go home by plane or things like that. What a shame, because I think he could have had a very successful county career as well. And
incredible cricketer, mate. Like I remember making my debut. I made my Scotland debut against India A. Remember at Clydesdale. I think I got 26, looking really good. Left a straight one, got bowled. Richie came in.
Yep.
Did he hit 120?
Yeah, Monib and Richie. 7.
That's right. I mean, say good day to Monty Mickbar when you can too.
Yeah.
What a useless wee bastard he was. But I loved him to bits. Now, I picked him when he was 16.
Yeah, that's right. Youngest.
So, you know, but I loved him to bits, and he played a bit at Greenock as well. But, you know, he doesn't know which tree is up.
He's coming on, Juddy. He's coming on.
Is he? You say good day for me. Tell him I send him a fond farewell.
Remember his big eyes. He's got his big eyes, Money.
Yeah, but you know what, you guys, I mean, you're bringing back floods here, and I'm probably going to miss somebody and whatever else, but it's really important to know I was very proud of what I did over there, and I'll always will be. And, And I don't think I left on too bad of terms either. And it was just a hoot.
Shaky might disagree.
Well, Shaky said he needs to say sorry to me for something. He doesn't.
No, listen, I'm at a stage in life, Juddy. You know me. You toured with me. We played. I got the pleasure of working with you on a lot of occasions. And sometimes me and you would have a few disagreements. You know, I'm quite opinionated, and you're quite a strong character. But by the by, we always pretty much we would just iron it out and move on. Obviously, I spoke out in an article a good couple of years ago where emotional, you're that passionate about playing for your country. You've done it from such a young age. Pete, you mentioned Pete. Pete was my under-13 coach and had a big influence on me. And Pete, I'll put this on record and saying, because I think some people think I was maybe right to say a lot of the things I said. I would never have gone to a T20 World Cup if it wasn't for Pete. I wasn't going to come to it for a trial game, and it was Pete who called me. I wasn't going to get to play against New Zealand in an ODI. Ryan Watson didn't want to pick me. I watched it in front of me in the warm-up, and Pete fought my corner to be in that game, and I got to play against New Zealand. Going out of the fray and not playing for a couple of, quite a while, and trying to iron it out with Pete, I felt at the time Pete had just kind of closed the door on me, and I did what I did. It's something that I've, regret. I think it should have been dealt with behind closed doors. And I also named you, but I'm sorry in some ways to you, but you did make me drive all the way from bloody Sheffield, and you battered me at 9 in a regional T20 game. I was gutted. I was driving up the road that all the way back to Sheffield, 9 hours of driving in one day, just going, Juddy. But at the same time, Juddy, you had a big influence on me in cricket, and I do want to apologise to you for naming you in that article. I hope you don't.
Look, I'm not even sure I even saw it, Kaz, and I'm getting that old now. I'm 57. I'm not even sure I remember it. Yeah, I don't have any bad blood towards anything over there at all. So you're free. Let it go.
I'm working on trying to somehow. He's not responded to me yet, mate. I'm trying to get Pete on a podcast. I would love to.
Yeah, I haven't spoken to him for a year or so either, but I did WhatsApp him the other day saying have a chat, so we'll see what happens. But look, he was terrific for me too. And Joe, as I said earlier, I think we don't always, none of us get it right. Some of us get it wrong, and you may well have the right case there. But at the time, who knows what was thinking and what was going on. So I won't answer for it now, other than to say that I certainly never walked away from you or anyone else for that matter going, I hate that man, I'll never speak to him again.
Well,
you know what I mean? That's never happened. And the only thing probably I was disappointed with towards the end of my first stint with Scotland was moves afoot to get rid of me. I got out before they got rid of me, so it didn't matter. But I figured that it wasn't worth the fight. And when they went full-time, I wasn't prepared to commit and live in Edinburgh full-time when we didn't have full-time athletes. Mm-hmm. That was pretty much my reasoning. Halfway through my second year with Scotland, I was pretty much offered full-time work in Edinburgh.
See, Juddy,
I said no, because you don't have full-time way forward at that time. But it's all one of the bridge. But you also don't want, someone wants your job or someone wants your place, and a little bit intriguing by the end of it. Yeah. Have we gone?
No, you're still there. You're back, Juddy. Your head's moving again. Juddy, what's we had we got the pleasure of speaking to your lovely wife, Joan.
Did you hear all that?
Yeah, we heard it. You froze, but we heard what you said.
Ricky, one more story. One more.
Go for it.
One more story, Juddy. Oh, God, he's regretting gone. You there?
You're back, Juddy.
We're still there. We're still okay.
Mate. You're there, mate.
One more story, Juddy, right? You've got Neil McCallum. You've got Richie Berrington. You've got Gordon Gowdy, right? You've got some real characters, right? Gowds, obviously, I bet you've got a few stories with we're all gouts. Gouts are a big arse like Macca as well, to be fair.
Massive toilet.
There's one story, mate, and it was in Dubai, and we're all sitting having a lovely team meal in Dubai. Remember, after the I Cup game, and there was a red wine that you were proceeding to drink a lot of the time. Can you remember that you thought the red wine was quenching your thirst? You thought someone had spiked your water. What was that with? Can you remember?
Oh, red wine with Tabasco, wasn't it? You idiots. By the way, I forgot to mention Gordon Galley, a really good favourite of mine as well. And when you bump into him next, tell him I said, what I want to say. Yeah, okay, you were a wee tadger as well, basically. But, Joe, that's the funny thing, guys, before we hang up. It was awesome. I don't regret a minute of it. I'm a very lucky life to have done what I've done. And Scotland gave me that, so I ain't complaining one bit.
Yeah.
Hey, Juddy, to come to the back end, it was lovely. Before we came on to record, we got to say hello to Joan and your daughter Beth, who's now no longer the little you know, she's grown up. She'd caught a fish earlier on today. She was pretty happy with herself. How's life for you now? You happy? You settled?
Mate, we'll never leave Darwin now. We're settled here. I've got a pretty good job. Joan's got an excellent job. She's gone up in her career. My Beth is lovely. Our stepson Fraser's back in Scotland with you guys. He went to visit his dad about 12 months ago, and COVID hit, and he hasn't come back.
All right, okay.
And he can't come back at the moment. There's no way. But he also needs to grow up and get on with life. He's 18 now, so get on with it. We are delighted with our life. As I get older now, I just want to drift off into the sunset. And can I tell you, though, boys, Darwin is COVID safe. Darwin is fantastic. If you ever come to Australia and you just do Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, and wherever else, you're pricks. You bring your family, you bring your wives, you bring girlfriends. You get up here, I'll show you a really good time up here. It's a great place.
I'd love to.
You can see in the background behind my right shoulder, it keeps changing colour.
I see a pool out there.
That's my swimming pool, yeah.
Nice.
Love it, Juddy.
Every day of the year I'm outside. I sit out here every day of the year. I'm very proud to be a part of this, by the way, and I hope what you're doing with COVID is going really well. Now, I can do you not with COVID, with your podcast. I can do you a favour, Kaz.
Sounds good.
I'll get you an interview, if you ask me nicely, with Greg Shippard.
Yeah, that would be awesome, mate. When you mentioned it earlier in the pod, I was waiting till we maybe got off, and I was going to ask you, but that would be awesome, mate.
He won't do silly stuff. He'll do, you want to talk about coaching?
Yeah.
You want to talk about life in general?
Yeah.
And what he's done with all the players, IPL, Victoria, Tasmania. He knocked back the New Zealand job. He knocked back working with Jeff Masters, assistant coach for Australia. This guy is a coaching genius.
Yeah, no, it'd be awesome. Be awesome to chat.
So if you email me and work it out with me, I'll try and put him on. And if he says yes, well and good. He doesn't want anything. He'll just do it. The man's a beautiful.
I don't have it. So
Johnny wants a finder's fee.
It would need to be your contact with them. Listen,
maybe all four of us should be on that night.
Why not?
And I'll ask him the questions.
Why not? Juddy, this has been some journey so far. You know, we've had on guests from all over the world. You know, you're speaking to us all the way from Australia. You know, we've had world-class cricketers, but high-level coaches have really, I mean, I don't know if you've seen it, but Grant Bradburn I done a podcast with, really, really interesting, really good insights. But yeah, we'd love to speak to Greg.
So Greg, for example, takes you from facing Jeff Thompson to present day coaching.
Wow. So he's just won the Big Bash.
Yeah, he's won it 2 years in a row. But he was Delhi Daredevil's first ever coach. This guy. Name a soccer coach. So I'll tell you how he is. This is what he is. He is the Alex Ferguson of cricket in Australia.
Wow. Well, we need to get. We'll leave it in your capable. Very kind of you to to offer to speak to him.
Well, I hope your podcasts go well. I hope the podcasts go well and it gets bigger and bigger.
Thank you, Juddy. It's been an absolute pleasure taking a trip down memory lane with you, my friend.
Well, listen, all I can say to you both is take care. If you ever get this part of the world and you don't look me up, you're a couple of pricks.
No, that can't happen, Juddy. We'd have to get over to Darwin, jump in that pool. Neil McCallum, you get him over there. You need some
Kaz,
some nudity in that pool.
Kaz, can we have a quiet little red wine together?
No.
Do you think we could do? Could we not do some halal whiskey or something like that?
Some halal whiskey. If you can get some halal whiskey or some, if you get halal meat in that part. Well, you know what? I can.
Yes, we do.
We can go out and catch some fish.
Darwin is the most multicultural place in the world, mate.
Really?
Every nationality in the world's here. Yeah, every nationality.
Well, as long as we can get some halal.
In fact, I've got a mosque a kilometre up the road for you.
Really?
Seriously, no shit.
That's impressive.
Let's do it.
Every Friday there. Flanners, can you do me a favour? Get a fucking tan. Not like this one though. I'm fucking glowing tonight. But
your face is like a melted welly, you old bastard.
Look at the colour of my arms, though. They're better. They didn't get burnt today, but fucking.
We love you, Johnny. We love you, old boy. We love you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for. I didn't do this. I should have done it. Fuck it. I forgot.
There he is.
No.
Johnny.
Stop the recording.
So
legend.
I think Craig Wright left a couple of boogers on it.
Love you, Johnny.
Cheers, Judd.
Love you both. Take care.